Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a football Friday edition, just a week away from the kickoff. Joined now by Ed Kracz from SI.com. Ed, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you on. Hope you're doing well today.
Hey, I'm doing good, guys. My house is a beehive of activity, so I've been pushed into like the furthest room possible. Hope everything's okay with the lighting and everything.
Looks perfect, Ed. Ed, it's Labor Day weekend. It's great to have the family around, right?
Yeah, exactly. It gets a little crazy, but it's fun. Yeah,
it's exhausting, but
it is exhausting.
You'll get through it.
Yeah,
you'll get through
for
it.
Sure.
I have much confidence in Ed Kracz more than anybody else. I think I have more confidence in Ed Kracz than Jalen Hurts has in Nick Sirianni. So we'll start there. Boy, Jalen threw a bomb on what's supposed to be, basically happy-go-lucky. People are paying to hang out with Dom and paying to get WIP shows at their businesses. The Eagles Radiothon. And Jalen throws out, he was told not to worry about a lot of things when it came to the pass protections. We had a great player in Jason Kelce who took on a lot of the responsibility. And as a result, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. So my eagerness to learn, here's the key, Ed, over the years kind of was halted because of who we had. Your thoughts on Jalen Hurts and throwing that little grenade into the conversation?
Well, I guess that gives us something to talk about before they leave for Brazil. We'll get Jalen, we'll get Nick, and I'm sure they'll be asked about it.
Yeah.
My reaction would be, I think accountability is one of the Nick Sirianni's core values. And, it seems like Jalen Hurts is kind of, once again, not really taking accountability by making this excuse that, hey, if anything goes wrong this season with the blitz pickups, I'm still new at it because I wasn't able to learn it in my first couple of years here because Jason Kelce was here. So I don't know. Jalen Hurts, listen, he's a good quarterback, but sometimes I wonder about his accountability.
I think that's fair. We talked about that. Yeah, very fair. And by the way, it sounds comical at this stage because we watched him play 100 and whatever straight games. But what if Jason Kelce got hurt and you had to do it yourself? Your learning was halted. Yeah, I don't get that part of it. I get being upset. He wanted more autonomy. I get that part of it, but look, they're paying you $250 million. I mean, prepare for the eventuality. And we all know Jason was going to walk away at some point. So you got to prepare for the eventuality where you're going to take that over, which is now.
Yeah, you're right. And what if Jason Kelce got hurt? It just seems like maybe the Eagles took it for granted that he was going to be out there every single game, every single week. And they didn't maybe factor that in, or, maybe there's more to this than what Jalen Hurts is saying. I guess we're going to have to start digging. I think we have 3 days with the Eagles before they go to Brazil. So, we'll see if we can't draw out any more information about where this is coming from and, why that was the case.
By the way, it was a good bet to say Kelce was going to play, though.
Yeah, 156 straight. I mean, just amazing that he was able to do that.
Yeah, that part of it was a good bet. All right, back off that.
Well, I am happy, by the way, just to hear Ed say that he sees it too, because part of me, I was saying I think there's some accountability issues there, and people in the chat did not like that, and it's good to have.
They don't like when you criticize the quarterback.
No, they don't. But
yeah.
I do think it's fair, though. I mean, I think any person, even if you're a fan of this team and you're objective, I mean, if you can't see that trend, I think you're just, turning a blind eye to it. There's definitely a little bit of that's happened with Jalen that hopefully isn't a problem this year.
Yeah, and I think we were talking, John and me, yesterday when we were at the facility that remember last year in Seattle when he, kind of went off script and threw a deep pass on an important play in Seattle, and he still never really kind of owned up to doing that. A.J. Brown said that they went off script, and Nick Sirianni, of course, tried to cover for them and say, they're looking for the offensive or the defensive pass interference call. So that's why they threw it deep. It was sort of a foolish explanation at the time, but he was just kind of dancing at that point because the two guys went off script, and Jalen really never owned up to any of that.
No, not to this day. None of it.
Right.
None of it.
So I don't know. Listen, the guy, like I said, he's a good quarterback. Looking forward to the season starting, see what he can do in this Kellen Moore offense. And, that's what I really want to kind of start focusing on. I hate all this drama that comes with the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think that's every quarterback in the league has some sort of drama that swirls around them.
Yeah, they're such a big focus, but you're right. So let's turn the page to Brazil. The new boys from Brazil. Eagles don't seem too psyched about this trip, Ed. This seems like logistical nightmare. It seems like you heard AJ with the a bunch of don't do's was his comment. You asked Devontae Smith about his thoughts on playing Brazil. He was no commenting you. He's not happy about it. Nick Gates called it a business trip. Get in, get a win, get out. I think that's how the Eagles are going to approach it. Anybody who thinks there's any sightseeing or walking around Sao Paulo doesn't seem that's going to be the case.
No, well, AJ said he's not leaving his room, right? And that's probably a good strategy to have. That's kind of how they're treating it. And for a lot of these guys, that this is going to be their first trip or their first football game being played outside of the country. And it's a long way to go to play a football game. I think it's a 12-hour plane ride, maybe 10. I'm not sure, but it's far. It's not like, you're taking a bus down to, Landover to play the Commanders. You're getting on a plane and you're flying for a good long time. And there's not much of a time difference. I think they're only an hour ahead, Sao Paulo, from us. So
I think it might be an hour. Yeah. Hour. Is it one or the other, behind or ahead? I forget, but it's only an hour difference.
Right. So that's beneficial, but it's still a long plane ride. And these players, I'm not sure, are too happy to do it. Tanner McKee is the quarterback, backup quarterback. He's been there. He knows Portuguese. He's did a mission there. He's excited about it, but he's not going to play. He's not.
Ed, are you going down there, Ed?
I am not. And, if I was, I would be in the same camp as A.J. Brown and the other players. I wouldn't be real happy about it.
Yeah, and not leave the room.
They're not making it easy for the media either, apparently. The NFL, there's a lot of logistical issues. There's supposed to be a political rally on Saturday that could make getting to and from the airport, very difficult.
That's what it was. Political rally.
Yeah.
I knew
Friday there's a national Friday's a national holiday. So who knows? So I mean, there's a lot and it's a 2.5-hour bus ride from the media hotel to the stadium.
Did anybody at the NFL check anything about Brazil before taking this? Well, I don't think they did.
I don't know. Listen, I'm sure the players will be fine. But I don't think the NFL cares about the journalists that are going to be on site.
No. Well, no, they don't. That's because we're criticizing the quarterback. I mean, they hope the Banditos get us. Luckily, we're not there. But
I just hope we're not negotiating any hostage releases at halftime. With some of these journos that are going to be down there. So, no, Zander, I'm very happy that I won't be going to this trip. It sounds to me like a logistical nightmare that I'd rather not have to deal with.
Yeah. Ed, I want to ask you about the first time we've had you on, obviously, since the 53-man and the practice squad has now been filled out a little bit more. They made another move yesterday by moving on from Marlon Tuipulotu. What do you think of the roster? What do you think of the 53-man, the practice squad, the move yesterday? We're 7 days out now, Ed, so this team is almost set, at least for the start of the season. What's your takeaway on the roster?
Yeah, well, the first part, like you mentioned, Marlon Tuipulotu, I was kind of surprised to see him go. Is Byron Young really that much of an upgrade? But then you look at what Howie said in his very first answer when he talked to us after the cut down on Tuesday. He said that they're always on the lookout for any way to improve this roster, no matter how incremental it is. And this feels like just kind of an incremental upgrade. I mean, I guess you could say Byron Young still has, 2 years of his contract left. Whereas Marlon T is in his final year, so you still
3 years. This is his second year. They gave up on him quick.
Okay, well that's even better. So you have 3 years of control for a D tackle. whereas Marlon T's leaving after this year probably. So, but I thought Marlon Tuipulotu was a good player. I mean, is as a reserve. So, that was kind of an interesting development yesterday. The practice squad, I think, John, they still have 2 openings on the practice squad. Does that sound right? They
brought Toth back, so yeah, it should be 2.
But they promoted Oren Burks.
Oh yeah, so yeah, they might still have. I have to double check on that, but
2 or 3.
Also, I should have mentioned the Eagles had a receiver in for a visit yesterday, so he might be on his way to the practice squad. Boy, I forget his name. He was a 3rd-round pick of San Francisco. They always like those 3rd-round San Francisco picks.
Yeah, right.
The 49ers give up on him, and they swoop in. Anyway, here it is. Danny Gray. They had in for a visit. Usually when they bring in people for a visit, they sign them, and this would be for the practice squad. So we'll see if that happens today, but keep an eye out for that. That's a potential possibility. I have to double check on the actual numbers of the practice squad, but you're right. They elevated Oren Burks, and they got Brett Toth back. So now they have 3 backup centers. I don't know if any of them can play, but they have 3 backup centers. To go to after the concern over the original 53. But I do want to get your thoughts, your first initial thoughts, because everybody's going down the conspiracy route with James Bradberry. What did you think when you saw that? Just your first reaction.
That he went on IR?
Yeah, 68 weeks IR.
Yeah, well, listen, I wasn't at practice on, what is it? Where are we here in the week?
I gotta think about it. So Wednesday's practice.
So I don't know if he was out there.
He was out there. He was out there.
Something I don't know. I mean, listen, there's that same conspiracy theory with Ainias Smith. How hurt was he? I'm not sure, but it seemed kind of convenient that, listen, Oren Burks decided to come back to the practice squad. I don't know if he had any other offers after the Eagles cut him, but he's a veteran linebacker, very good special team player. I would have thought there might be some interest in him. And it just seemed kind of convenient. And I talked to Oren Burks after the game on Saturday, and he said he thought he had a job won. Even though he was out most of camp, he felt pretty confident in, his standing on the roster. So, when you put 2 and 2 together, maybe there was something artificial about Bradberry's injury. I don't want to, I don't know that for a fact or anything, but it seemed convenient to Burks. Bradberry doesn't play special teams. Bradberry would have probably been a game day inactive in Brazil if he was on this roster. And the timing of 6 to 8 weeks seems awfully close to when the trade deadline is. So, it could be that he's going to be activated and maybe dealt. If there's some other team out there that does want to give you something, if they feel the need to upgrade their secondary and they're in the hunt for a playoff spot. If you're a conspiracy theorist, I think it makes sense to say, hey, that was kind of a made up injury. Obviously you can't do that and that's illegal. But I don't know that for sure, but it does seem awfully convenient that.
I don't know. The only thing, because that was my first thought as well. But I don't know how it helps the Eagles trade Bradberry. Like if you're saying, all right, he's hurt. I don't know why anybody's going to be banging down your door unless and then you're going way down. They got to be in on it. Oh no, he's really healthy. And then, you know how the NFL is, Ed, competitiveness. They're like, hey, by the way, the Eagles are skirting the rules. The Eagles have been one of the teams, thanks to John Ferrari, one of their assistant GMs. There was talk about tampering and the Eagles getting some draft capital with how Arizona handled Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah.
The Eagles certainly seem to have the inside track on Vic Fangio magically when he was out in Miami. There might be some teams looking for their pound of flesh if the Eagles are playing outside the line. So I'm not sure how putting them on IR helps the Eagles trade James Bradberry.
Well, you just don't know. I mean, listen, you can't predict the future. There might be a team that says, hey, man, Bradberry has a body of work. Let's face it. He's been in this league for 8-9 years now, so people know who he is. Not a very good body of work, obviously, last year, but just 2 years ago, he was second team All-Pro. So, if you're a team that's pushing for the playoffs, and, we've seen the Eagles sign Linval Joseph and then Ndamukong Suh late in the season to make their playoff push. So you just don't know, 6 to 8 weeks from now, which team could say, hey, we'll give you a 7th or, conditional 6th, whatever it is. You don't know. So, this is the best move. It's better than releasing him and exposing him to other teams. And listen, maybe eventually they will release him, but this gives them that extra.
By the way, I don't think they value their reputation in that a lot of players think Philadelphia is a good place to play. I don't think you want to do James Bradberry wrong either by, putting him out to adrift, so to speak, and not giving him an opportunity to continue his career when it's becoming abundantly clear that he's not going to be part of your organization. I don't know if that juice is worth the squeeze, and that's why I think he's hurt. Can't prove it, but I think he legitimately got hurt.
Yeah, he could. And listen, who knows? Does the league require, an MRI? Do they have to show an MRI to the league?
You do have to show.
So you're probably right. It just is coincidental, I guess, that he got hurt and you were able to promote Oren Burks. And
it is a crazy coincidence, though. Yeah. I will admit that.
Yeah, and Burks makes the team better, by him being on the roster. I mean, he's going to play. He's going to play special teams. A very good special team player. We talked about special teams. They let go of Zach McPherson, let go of Josh Jobe. Two very good, two good special teams players. So, he makes sense, and he makes the team better. So whether it's a coincidence or something underhanded, either way, they're a better team with him on the roster than James Bradberry.
By the way, it is 13, Ed. So they have 3 spots. They have 3 spots on the practice.
They also brought in a lineman from North Carolina. I think he was a former. You might want to look this up. I can't remember his name, but I think he got some time with the Giants last year. Maybe he was on their practice squad or the roster last year. So they brought in another offensive lineman. And, when Zander's earlier question about how I feel about the practice squad, I mean, listen, to me, one of the storylines coming into camp was finding a backup center. I mean, I know it's not real sexy and it's not, we're kind of nitpicking trying to find a backup center, but again, Jason Kelce starts 156 straight games. Is Juergens going to do that? He missed 4 games last year. So you have to identify who you can find to step in there just in case. And I don't think they've done that. I mean, Dylan McMahon, I don't think is ready. Nick Gates, we talked to him yesterday, sort of a surprise appearance. The Eagles made him available to talk with us. He didn't seem like he was, he talked about playing it, but I don't think he's done it for a while, so I don't know how helpful he would be. And now you bring in Brett Toth, who can play all 5 spots, but how well can he play him? Can he be a backup center in a pinch if something were to happen to Juergens? That's kind of what you're reduced to. So I don't like that part of it. I would rather have had them find a center that is an actual center and has, centered the football in an NFL game and have done it recently. But I guess that luxury is not out there. So they kind of cobbled that together.
Yeah.
I like,
backup tight end as well was the other position. Yeah. And they were able to get Jack Stoll back, which makes a lot of sense. He's on the practice squad. They were able to get EJ Jenkins back. By the way, Ed, 26 players league wide on that original waiver cut down were claimed. So again, that is one of the most overrated things in the NFL. When people are concerned, oh, you can't lose this guy, you can't lose that guy. Most people get through waivers, and the Eagles were able to bring back basically whomever they wanted. So you mentioned Josh Jobe. He's in Seattle. A couple other guys I thought the Eagles may try to bring back. PJ Mustipher, I believe, signed with Arizona's practice squad. Kendall Milton signed with Cincinnati's practice squad. Any surprise, especially PJ, because that move yesterday, in theory, Marlon Tuipulotu is the backup nose tackle to Jordan Davis. All those other guys are small, undersized for defensive tackle. Milton Williams, Moro Ajomo, the new guy, Byron, undersized, 290 pounds. They can't play nose tackle. Vic says, oh, they could line up there occasionally. Are you surprised they don't have that spot? That because they like to play that 50 front on early downs, 5 guys. If you don't have a nose tackle, Jordan Davis sprains an ankle, you can't play that front consistently.
Yeah. Listen, I think Vic, I have all the confidence in the world in Vic Fangio. I think, whatever 40 years he's been doing this, he'll find a way. I think he's good at disguising things. I think he can move guys around on that line, and you might be able to get by, with a Milton Williams or a Byron Young at that nose tackle spot, in short stretches. But, I think he'd find a way to cover that and still make this defense good. I mean, he would just have to adjust, and he's been doing that his whole career. I mean, he's an excellent coach, in my opinion, and I have faith that, even though he doesn't have, a true nose tackle in the house, that he'll find a way to overcome that if he has to, and Davis sprains an ankle. But right now, if Davis stays healthy, that guy better be ready to play, 60% of the snaps, I would think, at minimum, right? I mean, he's going to be out there for a long time. Yeah. He's going to be counted on heavily. So you hope that he stays healthy, and that, Fangio doesn't have to kind of abandon that look and look elsewhere or disguise things a little differently.
And by the way, Marlon might get through waivers, so we have to see that. I assume if he gets through waivers, they will bring him back to the practice squad because they do have those open spots. We got to talk to Alex Halaby a little bit yesterday, the Eagles' assistant GM. I thought that waiver conversation was interesting because I asked him, the Eagles obviously have a big staff and they could prepare for this kind of stuff, but he was kind of like, they're just like the rest of us. Well, we think this guy might get through waivers, but we don't know.
Yeah. Right.
And it was interesting. And I think it was interesting they admitted, that's kind of like you're gambling essentially. So I think the Eagles made the right decision by not putting Eli Ricks on waivers because Carolina ended up picking up, I think, 3 corners. So they probably would have claimed him. I think that's an example of where it worked. But then some of these other guys today, Marlon's an example. You're kind of just crossing your fingers that nobody needs a defensive tackle.
Yeah, you can only calculate the risk of cutting a guy and hoping you get him back so often. And, Alec Halaby is a big graphs guy. Listen, he's a smart guy. We've talked to him before, and I'm always impressed with him. He's a GM in the making. Maybe one strike against him is he looks like he's 16 years old, and maybe that kind of maybe that's just not a good optics for when you go in for these job interviews. He talked to the Commanders and the Panthers in the offseason about a GM job there, didn't get it, but I think it's only a matter of time before he's running the show in one of these NFL cities. But yeah, you're right about you can only calculate so much. You cut these guys and you cross your fingers if you want them back. And, sometimes it works out. In most cases, like you pointed out, it does. Only 26 players claimed after the initial cut down. How about Julian Okwara? I was told he was in Arizona. Did he sign with the Cardinals?
He signed with the Cardinals.
He was a surprise. I thought that they would maybe try to get. And listen,
Ed, you had him on your 53 projection, didn't you?
Yeah, thanks, Zander, for pointing that out. I was just ready to doubt myself, but thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I had to beat you to it, Ed.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Listen, I thought he had a really good summer. I talked to him after the game. I'm like, man, this guy, he's a smart guy. He's a fun guy. Like, he seemed like a popular guy. So I took a big swing there, truth be told, and I had them putting Jalix Hunt on the IR because he's got the oblique injury, and these oblique injuries take time. So I thought, well, listen, 4 games on IR is not going to kill the kid. He's a rookie. He could use some time to kind of develop, study the playbook a little more over those 4 weeks. So I had them cutting Hunt and keeping Okwara.
Yeah, that's always for our purposes, we got to kind of guess on how serious these injuries are.
Yeah. And I have to say, those obliques are tough. And look, Dallas Goedert has
Dallas
one.
Goedert still not practicing.
Still not practicing, which could be, we could see
Jack
Stoll.
Could be an issue for week 1.
Could be. We could see
Isaiah Rodgers popped up. Isaiah wasn't even hurt. Now he's hurt. He's not practicing.
Yeah.
So that burst injury reports is going to be an interesting one. But yeah, Julian Okwara out with Jonathan Gannon with the Arizona Cardinals, who also got PJ Mustipher as well.
Yeah.
And he is a smart guy, man. I'll tell you what. He's a Notre Dame guy. Those Notre Dame guys, and then Thomas Booker's a Stanford guy. Those guys are smart as a whip, every single one of them.
Yeah.
So congrats to those colleges.
Yeah, exactly. And, the Eagles have another Alabama guy. I mean, Devontae,
not so much with those Alabama guys.
No offense taken on that one, John.
Now that was a shot at Zander. Zander went to Alabama.
You're an Alabama guy?
I am an Alabama guy, Ed.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, a couple of guys. I coach wrestling, obviously, and I had one of my wrestlers that they don't have a wrestling program, but he got a full scholarship to go there to Alabama, and I got a text from him the other day. He's in his second week, and he says he loves it down there. So,
what's not to love? Sweet home Alabama. What's not to love?
Just tell them don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the noise down there in Alabama. There's a lot of that, so gotta be careful. It's a big state school, you know what I mean. There's a lot of partying. There's a lot of stuff. So.
Well, my son,
education.
Yeah, my son lived in Birmingham for a little while, and I said, "Listen, don't fall in love with a girl because of her accent. You got to dig a little deeper, than that Southern drawl."
That's impossible not to do, Ed.
I know
you're swimming upstream on that one.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. But now, get back to Bama. I mean, now Byron Young's from Alabama. So how many? Add up the number of Bama guys that they might have more now than the Georgia contingent.
But they lost Josh Jobe, so it's a give and take.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Jobe was an Alabama guy. Yeah.
Did Jobe get on the practice squad?
No, he's Seattle's practice.
Seattle, okay. So, that's a special teams loss. You got to think Michael Clay's upset at that one,
Yeah.
He was their best special teams player last year. As Andrew Jacheca will tell you 20 times a day if you give him a chance.
What do you think of the roster spot? Zander asked about the roster. The safety position to me is, I don't know. I mean, you have a converted corner in Maddox. You have Tristan McCollum, second-year guy. Obviously took a big leap from year one as an undrafted free agent.
But Sidney's coming. Sidney's coming back.
Yeah, I think when Sidney gets back, I feel better.
He'll be back week 6. He looked great yesterday, by the
way. He was pretty damn good as a rookie. I mean, he wasn't like
but I mean, physically. We were at practice. Practice was at Lincoln Financial Field yesterday. They were doing an operations practice. We got to see Vic walk up to the press box, calling practice from the press box. But Sidney was working out before. He just looks 150%, but that's an injury that needs a certain amount of time from a time standpoint. And they're going to play it cautious, but he's coming back. And Caden Stearns is here. And Vic obviously loves that kid because they're willing to wait for him.
He's still limping, though. I mean, I saw him limping yesterday. I don't know how much he's going to help this year. He had a really serious patella injury last year.
He's much farther away than Sidney.
Carell Buckhalter had that patellar tendon injury, and that kind of ruined his career. I mean, he was able to come back, but he wasn't the same. So, and that was years ago. Maybe the fix is a little bit more seamless now to get that repaired, but I don't know. I mean, but he's still limping. That's not a good sign. I'm surprised he wasn't put on IR. He's on the practice squad. Maybe he'll still go to IR. But yeah, Sidney Brown looked great. He was running full sprints and moving laterally. So, but he's still out for 4 games. So until then, what are you doing? Like Gardner Johnson, he hasn't been healthy for full seasons since he came into the league. I think
he played 15 games in the last 2 seasons combined.
He got hurt in week 2 last year.
I mean, that's not that many. 15 out of 34 is not a great percentage on being on the field. So that's a concern.
And he was hurt in camp. He had a shoulder issue in camp that wasn't believed serious. And, he'll play Friday in Brazil against Green Bay. So, but, you got to monitor that. So, that is my biggest concern on this team is that safety depth. I'm not sure they have enough there. And I understood why they kept Bradberry, thinking, okay, if we really need him, and, it's going to take a lot to really need him, but at least he's here and he can step in if we're in a real bind. But now you don't have that. So, they need to stay healthy till Sid's ready to come back.
By the way, CJ was out tweeting this morning. What do they call it now? It's not tweeting.
Posting.
Xing,
I don't know what you call it.
Posting,
I still call it tweeting, John. And
yeah, me too.
So do I. Anyway, CJ, one of those horrible aggregation football accounts was tweeting about Brazil and so they said Sao Paulo, where the Eagles and Packers play next Friday, is dealing with severe wildfires in over 30 cities, crime everywhere. There's been a spike in pneumonia, rhinitis, asthma attacks, and conjunctivitis. And CJ saw this and said, do you really think it's safe to play there? Boy, I'll tell you what. Our buddy Martin Frank is going. Martin's a world traveler. Martin's a very savvy traveler.
Yes, he is.
I could see that from Martin. I didn't know that, but now that you say that, I could see that.
He's not concerned with it, nor should he be. I mean, as I said, every big city in the world is dangerous if you're a moron. And you do some things you're not supposed. You could say the same thing about Philadelphia. I don't know about the conjunctivitis, but you could say the same thing about Philadelphia.
I can't believe it. And wildfires are a concern, obviously, for lung, breathing.
Yeah, well, wildfires. I mean, you can't control wildfires. I don't know how bad the wildfires are, but
that's the first I've heard of it.
That could be a concern, but I wouldn't count on it. It was ML football, which is a pox on society. So, CJ saw it and is contemplating whether it's safe to play there. So, I think, the players are not happy to be going there.
No.
Ed, last question for me, man. I got one more question for
you.
I know we won't be able to answer all of these questions until they're on the field, and maybe there's some adversity and we can see kind of how they respond this year. But up to this point, do you believe that the Eagles organization have answered some of the questions from last year, whether it be players, personnel, coaches, leadership? You think they've done a good job of kind of setting their ship back on, getting it back on track and trying to get back to that Super Bowl? Do you think they've done a good job up to this point?
Yeah, well, listen, I can answer that without even having seen them play a game yet, and the answer would be yes. I think they have. I think they've done a good job, bringing in experienced coordinators. I think they've revamped this roster to a point where you have a lot of young guys, hungry guys. I think this is now the 6th or 7th youngest roster in the NFL. So you only have, I don't even know how many players, 3 maybe left from that Super Bowl team. So you have done a good job, I think, moving on from guys that might have been maybe, playing for themselves last year. But I think the biggest move was getting the coaching staff in place. They have a linebackers coach who I love, Bobby King, NFL experience. Clint Hurt, defensive line coach. I think he's been a great addition. Christian Parker, I think, has, a wealth of NFL experience too, and will help that secondary. So I think just right there alone with the coaching staff, yes, I think they've turned the page and they moved on. I've seen Jalen Hurts seems a little more happier. They got Doug Nussmeier now, the quarterback coach. I think he likes him. I think he gets along with Kellen, and I think it's going to be, last year is going to be forgotten about.
All right.
Good stuff, Ed. That's some optimism from Ed coming out.
At Kracz, by the way, read Ed, SI.com/NFL/Eagles. We got a lot of stuff up there every day at Kracz. Some of it good, some of it not so good. Yeah. Yours is good. Mine is occasionally good. Some other stuff, not so good.
And the best part is, John and Zander, it's all free. It's free content.
It's all free.
So I love it. JAKIB Sports is free. SI is free. These are 2 of the few left that are free. Everybody else is behind a paywall, man. I'm like paywalled out at this point, Ed.
I know.
Paywalled out. So get all the Eagles news at si.com/NFL/Eagles.
All right, guys. Have a great
Thanks,
Labor
Ed.
Day weekend.
Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the
you too.
family.
Thank
Ed,
you.
appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon. All right, man. Thank you.
All right, Zander. Thank you.
Yep.
See ya.
Happy Labor Day. There's Ed Kracz joining us. Love talking to Ed, one of my favorite guests here on Birds 365. As always brings good perspective. Johnny Mac, just a couple minutes left to go here in the show today. A week out, my man. We made it all the way through the off season. By the way, for those, 1 week, John. Real quick though, we will there will be no full show on Monday on Labor Day. Everybody, I know it's game week, so I'm going to try and do a 30-minute football 24/7, depending on John's schedule. I'll try and do one with him, and I'll try and do one with Cilio. But there will be no full shows on Monday, so it will look a little different this week, or on Monday, and then we'll dive deep on Tuesday morning for the game. Just wanted to put that out there. But John, a week away, man, we did it. We made it through the offseason. It's here, baby.
It seems, I think it's got to cool off a little bit before. It doesn't seem like football yet to me.
It doesn't. I'm with you, John.
It's been too hot, but when the games pick up, obviously the interest will be there. There's no question. A lot of expectations for this particular team. I think deservedly so. Clearly one of the most talented teams in football. And when you're starting an NFL season, that's all you can ask for as a fan. That's all you should ask for, at least. The Eagles are going to be relevant, and we'll see what they can do with that.
No doubt about it. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I think we had a great show today. Not everybody liked the comments on Jalen Hurts, but that's all right. We're talking football, everybody. If you want everybody to agree with you all the time, you need to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. So thank you for those who are still here, who watched the show today, who listened. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content and you drop a like on the shows. It's one of the best things you can do to help us reach more Eagles fans and to grow the show. Johnny Mac, great week from you, my man. Good work. As always, to all of our people in the chat, great week from you guys as well. Appreciate all of you. It's one of my greatest joys in my weeks is talking football with all of you guys in the chat. So thank you so much for being here. Johnny Mac, good show today, man. Good shows this week. Have a great weekend, Johnny Mac, and gear up, baby. We're just a week out now.
Yeah, happy Labor Day. Everybody enjoy it.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Hit that like button on your way out, and we'll talk to you later on here on JAKIB Sports. Thanks, everybody.